Mojo is actually an African word by derivation, and it means magic. It's commonly associated with self-confidence and with attractiveness. And when Sarah and I, my business partner, initially set up our business, we were helping people to redefine themselves after they'd been through some kind of crisis or they were at a professional crossroads, because we had been at a professional crossroads. One was a redundancy, and for me, it was the collapse of a business partnership and all of the problems that ensued. But what we've done latterly, and probably in the last 2.5 years, is to apply this concept of mojo to business. And what it means is helping a business to find its voice. Do you understand what I mean by that phrase? Finding who you are, what defines you, your distinctiveness. And then, of course, building a story around that, because you've got to communicate that distinctiveness. So what we do in helping businesses find that mojo is, first of all, help them craft the story. Secondly, train them to tell it well. And then thirdly, help them to use things like social media that Julian was talking so well about to amplify that message and build support and pull people in to attract. Talk about why communication's broken, and we'll first of all talk about the external message, the external marketing. Julian mentioned that we live in a very interconnected world now, where the internet is incredibly powerful and incredibly central to our businesses, whether we like it or not. And on the one hand, the advent of social media is a wonderful opportunity because it's an equalizing force. It means that anybody has access to YouTube, to LinkedIn, to Facebook and so forth. You can have your own TV channel, as we do. We can have our own radio show, as we do. We can publish things. It's all free. And that's fantastic in a way, but the problem is that with no barriers to entry, it creates a lot of noise, because the quality of what's put out there often isn't great. And it creates, if you remember the way we used to tune radios in, static. So one of my messages today is that rather than adding to that noise, we would call that, say, white noise, start to strengthen your signal. Put something out there which is distinctive and will really get heard. I mentioned Sarah, my business partner, before, and Sarah's story is very interesting and I think very instructive to this line of thinking. Sarah worked for 12 years in a job that she adored, and that was for the British Council. And in the British Council, I don't know whether you know of their work or what they do, but she was involved in intercultural exchange, in learning projects, educational programs around the world, and she loved it. And then she was made redundant. Cutbacks in the public sector. Now, she set up on her own to try and do some of that same kind of work as an independent consultant. But to be honest, it didn't go great, because the British Council really is the only place that that kind of work tends to be accessed. So she was struggling a little bit, and she was speaking to a friend who had an interest in marketing, and her friend told her, well, you should blog. And when you're told to do that, the first question that most people respond with is, what do I blog about? And they say, well, blog about something you feel passionately about. And she said, well, I feel strongly about all the work that I used to do that's been taken away. But she remembered 14.5 years earlier in her life, when she was working as a teacher before the British Council in Slovenia, where she used to live and work. She remembered an incident of racial prejudice around the time of the Bosnian War, when lots of refugee children were coming over to Slovenia from Bosnia to seek refuge in classrooms. And she noticed an incident, a very tiny incident, where some little kids from Bosnia were not served their morning milk. And it bothered her, because she thought, well, I've been treated with tremendous hospitality as an overseas visitor to Slovenia. Why is this happening? And although it bothered her at the time, she kind of lost track of that train of thought for many, many years hence. But then this moment to reflect, what do I blog about? She remembered this incident and she wrote about it. She posted it on LinkedIn, she shared it around a few relevant groups, And then in contrast to how she was doing with her normal, marketing efforts with her own company, she got a phone call. She got a phone call from the Slovenian cultural ambassador who said, "Sarah, I've read your blog. I think it's tremendous, the story that you've told. Would you mind coming to Amsterdam to speak at our embassy at an event for diplomats and other business leaders?" And she immediately thought, well, have you got the right number? Did you mean me? Because it was very, very different to her experience of marketing in the normal way. And all sorts of amazing things happened to her thereafter. Then she met me. I shared my story with her of kind of a reinvention after a difficult situation 6.5 years ago. And we both realized that what we'd both had in common is that we had found our voice as individuals. In other words, we'd found what we felt very grounded doing. We told a really good story, a very authentic, transparent story about who we were, what we were trying to achieve, and it attracted attention. And I've mentioned on the screen here that what she did was she sent out a frequency. She sent out a very specific frequency that only certain people would tune into. But can you see that it was because of the specific nature of what she said and how personal it was that it meant something to somebody out there? Now contrast that to pushing out endless, bland, factual descriptions of what you do, which have no personality, no humanity, no distinctiveness, and you will not get noticed. You'll add to the noise. There's a great book, and Julian, I don't know whether Julian's still here, but it's the New Rules of Marketing and PR by David Meerman Scott. And he talks about, and I thoroughly agree with this, that it's not enough now in the modern marketing world to tell more people what you do, to spread around that factual message. What they're really interested in is who you are, how you do things, and why you do things in the particular way that you do. And it's very, very easy to communicate that kind of message by sharing experiences and explaining case studies, which really are stories when they're told well, because people glean a lot of meaning when they hear the stories that you're telling and the stories that other people are telling about you. They infer or impute lots of meaning to it. They can get a sense of what you're like if you communicate in this way. USP, we're all told we need a USP, a unique selling point. But we are very strong on customer service. We invest in our people. We're customer focused. They're not USPs, they're CSPs, they're common selling points. But if you start putting more of you into the things that you talk about, can you see that you are the only one of you in the world? There's only one person in the world that's had your specific experiences. So that if you can weave your own experiences into the message that you want to deliver, then it is by definition unique. And that's the way we need to communicate. Your people, the relationships they have, the stories they generate are by definition your unique real estate. So talk about them.